Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our PD in your PD in your PJs session this evening, where we will be talking about AI and education. While we welcome all public school employees, this event is only for GAE members and GAE staff. Therefore, if you're not a GAE member or part of GAE staff, please sign in by putting your name, email address, and school system in the chat to myself or Karen Solheim. We appreciate your interest in GAE and hope you will join our organization today by visiting joingae.org. Please note you must have prior permission from the GAE Executive Committee or the Executive Director
No.
before recording audio or video of this meeting. Social media posts concerning this meeting shall not contain information about the specific content of the meeting, although the sharing of general information about GAE and GAE events is encouraged. Please be courteous to other attendees and request their permission before posting photographs containing their images. If you have questions about the social media posting of GAE events, please contact the GAE Executive Committee or the GAE Executive Director. Again, we are so glad everyone is here today. And at this time, I will turn our session over to the chair of the GAE Professional Development Committee, Karen Solheim. Karen?
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everybody. So glad you are here. And this is the first of what I hope will be bi-monthly, every 2 month presentations from the GAE Professional Development Committee. We went through and had a survey that went out to all GAE members last year. And from that, your Professional Development Committee design sessions for our past fall leadership conference. And then we thought, well, not everybody can drive into Atlanta for a weekend. And so we thought we would just go through and pick topics that you said that you wanted to hear more about and have those occur on a Tuesday evening. And then the same presentation, although nothing is ever the same, will be repeated on December 14th, which is a Saturday in the morning from 9:30 to 10:30. So you're more than welcome to show up again, invite your fellow GAE members and friends. But the PD committee really thought that this was a good way to go through and just talk about some things that are really in the forefront of public education. And so tonight's focus, as you can see, is about artificial intelligence. And if you have questions as you go along, if you'll put them in the chat, we'll go back periodically and monitor the chat and try and get those questions answered before the end of our time together. And we are committed on PD in your PJs to starting right at the hour at 6 o'clock and then ending at the top of the next hour at 7. So this is not going to be one of those presentations that lingers on throughout the evening. But so glad you're here. And I'm also especially happy to welcome our presenter, Brandy Bixler, who is in Fort Collins, Colorado, and NEA Digital Learning Specialist. And Brandy and I have been communicating this past week, and we're excited to have her share this information with us this evening. So, Brandy, you are on.
Hi, it's so glad to see all of you and hopefully hear from you from a different part of the world than I live in. So I was part of the task force to put together this. We have a teaching and learning AI report that the NEA put together. And so I'm going to just kind of go over the principles that we outlined in that and hopefully have time for a discussion at the end. Please feel free to ask questions. I like interactive. And I started out as a teacher. I actually started out as a paraprofessional And I did that through college, and then I got my teaching license kind of through an alternative route. I had an internship, and I taught for 25 years, and I've taught preschool through 8th grade. I was a district level technology specialist. I was a math coach and a reading recovery teacher. So, and I taught all grades. So I'm a generalist, right? What is it? The jack of all trades, expert of none. I kind of feel like I like to dip my toes in everything. Technology is pretty easy for me, and it always has been. I'm not necessarily like a technology person though. Like I don't have toy computers at home to play with. I don't do your typical like gaming. Like when the day's over, I'm done with my computer. What I do like about technology is that it connects us as human beings, and it also helps me do my job. But for me, the allure of technology is the connectivity to actual human beings. I mean, here we are, you know, I'm in Colorado and you're in Georgia, and we're just having a conversation like this. So I am happy to be here. So thank you. My computer's, am I okay? Can you hear me and see me okay? It says my connection's unstable.
I can hear you, I can see you, and the opening slide of your PowerPoint looks like it's on the screen.
Okay, and it's not turning the page for me.
So when you go down to the lower left of your screen, there aren't any buttons that appear to do that, huh?
It froze up on me. Now I have the beach ball. So maybe we could take a minute to hop in the chat, like who's in the room? What are your roles in education? What are you interested in AI?
That sounds good. And you have just, well, you did change screens there for a minute, but as you go out and come back in on screen share, and I think she'll have to come in. I think we have lost our presenter at this point.
I think we lost her.
Which is ironic at this point in time. But why don't we take this, her suggestion to heart, if you don't mind, and put in first name, if you like, first and last, and just what school system you're with, so we can see who we have represented on Zoom. We have a couple people. Thank you all.
I am not savvy with the chat on the phone kind of deal, but my name is Jimmy Gilbert, and I'm the instructional coach at Greene County High School.
And where is Grange High School?
Greene County. It is off of I-20. Surrounding counties is Morgan, Putnam, Lake Oconee area.
Gotcha. I just misheard with what you said. So thank you for elaborating on that. That's wonderful. It looks like we're fairly represented here. A good cross section of individuals. Well, while Brandy is coming back, I'm going to just use this moment for to talk about a legislative member alert you're going to be getting in the near future concerning the repeal of GPO-WEP. And I hope that you know that GPO-WEP is an egregious piece of federal legislation that prohibits people retiring from non-Social Security public sector employees from going through and receiving all their Social Security benefits. And so a week ago, Monday, there was legislation heard in the House to repeal the GPO WEP. And that particular piece of federal legislation passed 327 to 75. So the GAE member alert you're going to be receiving is going to ask you to contact our 2 US senators, John Warnock and Raphael, I just have blanked. Give me a last name. Warnock.
How about
Thank you.
John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock?
Thank you. I confused there, and can contact them, because as this piece of legislation hopefully moves into the Senate for a vote in some configuration, our 2 US senators have signed on to repeal the GPO WEP, but we just want to remind them at this point in time that they did sign on, and that our members, whether it impacts you or not, our members want our US senators to vote for the however it manifests in the US Senate, the repeal of GPO WEP. I did get a text here from Brandy. She's working on the technology portion. But Tony Smith, I'm putting you on the spot. Tony is president of the GAE Retired Organization. And do you want to could you share for just a moment about how GPO WEP impacts you?
Absolutely. I came into teaching as a second career, and Karen, Brandy's coming back in.
So do you want to do it in 15 seconds or less?
Let's do it at the end if we have time. Let's get Brandy started.
Okay, thank you. So stay tuned for Tony's information about GPO WEP and its repeal. And Brandy, so glad you're back.
I'm on my phone and I'm not able to share my screen yet because my computer is going all crazy, but I can definitely talk through this stuff and take questions.
This is fine. This is what we do in education, I think, isn't it?
It is. We just go with it, right? Hopefully at some point I'll be able to switch back to my computer, but I wanted to just kind of start with, I don't know if when I was talking about the task force, was I on or was I frozen?
You just said that NEA had gone through and came up with the policy statement. And I think that's about where you disappeared on us.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so we came up with this report. It's about 60 pages long. It is on NEA.org. And for me, it was kind of a labor of love because EdTech is kind of my jam. And we talked a lot about like the policies of EdTech, but also like how AI is affecting everything. And so it was approved at the RA. And we have it up and running, and we are using it as a framework now to, to push our AI work out into the world. So the outcomes for this session are just going to be kind of for me to share the big ideas of this report, talk about some of the benefits and challenges of AI in education, and then think about what your role is in education and how you can utilize AI to be an enhancement in a safe and equitable way. So we have a definition of AI, and it's very, very wordy, but I'm going to read it because I can't show you my screen. So basically, AI is any machine-based system designed around human objectives to perform tasks that would otherwise require human or animal intelligence. So I don't know if that means anything to you or not, but basically AI systems can do some of the following or all of the following. So they're really good at identifying patterns. So looking at data and analyzing it, excellent way to use AI. They can understand natural language. There are actually AI programs now that can have a conversation with you using voice only. They can produce content, not always accurately and not without bias, but it can produce content. It can make predictions. It can help you with decision making. It can give recommendations. You can ask it questions to solve problems and use it as a thought partner. So there are just the ways in using AI are really unlimited. I'm going to be switching to my computer now, so I may pop out for a minute, but I'm coming on.
Great. And I'm putting in the chat the link to the NEA AI report that Brandy is talking about. So it's pretty easy to find just by Googling NEA and AI. And it's on, as she mentioned, on the NEA website.
If you could give me sharing permissions, I can share my screen now.
You are a co-host. Oh, but okay. Now you are a co-host in 2 places. Life is
Okay.
good.
All right. So now you can see my screen. Yay. I feel so much less handicapped. It's like, you know, doing life with one arm tied behind my back. So things are changing really, really fast right now. AI has been in the works for a very, very long time, but it seems like the things that it's doing and the things that are being put out there are just hitting us very, very fast, which means that, you know, it hasn't been really vetted yet. It's still an experiment and progress, right? So we have to really think about this. I Googled, you guys have 1.5 million students in public schools in Georgia. That's a lot of kids. So we need to really think about how AI can be used to support these students and the educators in ways that will matter to everybody. And it really does have the potential to transform how we teach and how we learn. It can open doors for students with disabilities. It can even the playing field in a lot of ways, but it can also do harm if we're not careful. So when we think about implementing AI, we need to take some of the lessons we've learned from social media and how it's affected our everybody, really. It's affected our world, this mass media immersion that we're always in has affected mental health, right? So we want to do this right. We want to make sure that we're partnering with AI in all the good human ways. So there's a lot of benefits to AI, right? For students, they can get language support. So if you have second language learners in your classroom, it can translate for you or for them if they have literacy. I don't know of a program that can do it with speaking yet, but Duolingo has AI component and it has a lot of potential for that kind of support. If you have reading levels, you know, I taught elementary school for a long time and the levels were, you know, from barely reading first grade to, you know, advanced graduate level readers, right? So you can use AI to rewrite text in an easier readability level. You can use AI, like the Khan Academy is an example of how AI is used for tutoring. I use it all the time as like a thought partner, especially when I'm stuck on like, how do I start? I can say, oh, I need to do a presentation on AI. Where should I start? And have like a back and forth kind of conversation. Keep asking questions. It is such a useful thought partner, with the caveat that you have to, as the human, have the expertise to know if it's correct and also to evaluate any biases that are coming across. An area we don't talk a lot about are simulations and virtual reality. And I'm going to date myself, but we used to have the film strips in my classroom. You couldn't rewind them. You couldn't fast forward them without like waiting 10 minutes. Right now, you can just go to a video and click on the exact second you want to show and use it, right? So there's so many advancements in how we can immerse students in learning. Like we had to take a field trip when I was in school, right? So now we have virtual reality that can open up the world for our students, but we also have to make sure we're not overusing virtual reality, right? It can help us do simulations and with things that wouldn't be safe to use in person. I'm thinking like chemistry or anatomy, right? There's all kinds of scientific things. Math, you can run various simulations very quickly with AI. I mean, how cool is that? And then we can also input a piece of writing or a problem solving question, and our students can actually get feedback from AI on what they're doing well, what maybe they need to work on. I know some educators are using that to have one-on-one conferences with students and talk about the feedback, if it's accurate, if it's not accurate, you know, so adding that human element on top of that other piece. And then accessibility, technology, assistive technologies is such an interesting field, and this is going to just open so many possibilities for all kinds of disabilities. And for teachers, we can have lesson planning, and it can help come up with modifications. It can make personal learning plans for you. It can do high-level analysis of student data if you want it. You just need to be careful not to put student names or any identifying information into any kind of AI tool that's not like firewalled in your district, because the data is a big issue. You can use it for, you know, helping you write an email, especially those really hard emails to write. And it's great at like putting in a bunch of text and getting questions or quizzes developed from it. So there's a lot of benefits to AI, and it really can transform learning. Learning for the kids who are in our classroom today is going to look so different in 10 years. There's also some concerns in AI. We have the digital divide, and I know in Georgia you have a lot of rural areas, and this is a big deal, that access to technology and connectivity. It could get wider with the availability of AI tools for some and not for all. There's a lot of questions about the ethical use. Plagiarism is one of the top of the list things. But there's also like adults still, you know, have some ethical lines about what's your work, what's AI work. It's very fuzzy. There's also inherent bias. And then there's there's like surveillance of AI tools. And in our report, we do not recommend using AI surveillance. There's, you know, decision makers who want to plug in a bunch of test data and make high stakes decisions for our students. You know, that's a big problem. We don't want it to replace human relationships. And again, I'm just going to say that data and privacy protection is freaking out your IT department as we speak. I don't know if anybody is in the IT department online, but I think they're kind of freaking out about AI. And, you know, it's the same for teachers. It's kind of the same types of things like the educator evaluation system and making high stakes decisions based on a bunch of data that was input into a computer. For a lot of us, there's some concern about autonomy and also job security, especially for education support professionals with the tutoring programs coming out, making a lot of promises that will never replace a human, you know, interaction. And then there's the professional learning needs. It's going so fast. And this might be like the first professional learning opportunity you're getting, and it needs to be for everybody. And I applaud Georgia for getting on the bandwagon early, right? And getting you educated and exposing you to these ideas. It is happening very quickly. So here's the link or QR code if you want to actually download the report. And this is what we came up with. There's 5 principles. There's 60 pages of stuff. So this is a really down and dirty kind of summary of it. But we came up with the 5 principles. And the first principle is about humans, and students and educators are still the experts. We still need to remain at the center of education and decisions and implementations and policies that are being put in place. We need to stop having things done to us by policymakers, and we need to start, you know, getting them to do things for us. And that is a long, long ways away, I know. We also have to start paying attention to the research that's being done and making sure that there's research from independent researchers that actually show how using it enhances the student learning experience or saves you time as an educator in the work you do. There's a lot of tools out there making a lot of promises, and I would be very, very skeptical if a tutoring program comes to your school and promises to get all of your kids to grade level in 90 days. I mean, they make ridiculous promises. And then the third principle is we have to make sure we're using AI ethically, and we're using strong data protection practices. We already have seen how social media companies have abused data, and really, I know for me, they have a lot of my data because I love Amazon and I love Google and I like Facebook, right? So they kind of know everything about me, and I don't feel good about that. And then, you know, for me, number 4 is probably the most important one. And that's making sure, again, that digital divide isn't made greater by using AI tools, right? It closes the gaps, it doesn't widen them. And then thinking about how are we, number 5 is thinking about how are we becoming AI literate? And it's not just about teachers becoming AI literate, but also our students. What do they need to know about how AI works? And how do they need to use AI in an ethical, you know, useful research best practice way? So I think that number 5 is probably the one with the most impact right now for classrooms. So I'm just going to kind of go through these, and please interrupt me if you have questions. Actually, if you have questions right now, feel free to just unmute. I'm trying to juggle, you know, presenting and everything. So if you do have questions, just interrupt or pop it in the chat.
Well, I think on one of the slides you said AI surveillance.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that when I get to, I think it's
Okay. Okay,
yeah.
I want to know more.
Okay, yes. So principle 1, I think I've kind of already talked about that, you know, humans are at the heart of what we do. We went into education because we care about our students and we love learning. And just always remembering it's a tool, not a solution. So those people coming in and promising the world to probably your administrators, be skeptical, right? It's not a solution. People are the solution. And, you know, like having a highly qualified educator can never be replaced with AI. And so having a highly qualified educator with AI tools in their toolkit to use and making the decisions on how and when and why it's going to be used is what needs to happen. We need to be the driver of this car and not let any mandates come in that say, you know, you are going to have your kids on this tutoring program for 3 hours a day, right? Like we don't want that kind of craziness. You're the experts and we need to hear from you and you need to be part of that process. And it's not just for educators, it's for the whole world, right? It's a human-centered approaches that are crucial. They are what makes us get up in the morning. We get up because of other people. And so we always have to remember to keep that at the center of everything we do. Any questions about Principle 1? Okay. Principle 2. I feel like a Jeopardy host. Principle 2. What is? Evidence-based AI technology must enhance. And this goes back to that research best practice. And so we need to make sure that we're not being sold, you know, snake oil. We're getting tools that have been tested and reviewed and put in our toolkit to use when appropriate. We have to make sure as part of that testing and monitoring that the AI tools are not perpetuating any kind of stereotypes and biases, because AI is only as good as the people who trained it. And so all of the information that gets put into your AI to train it on how to respond to things is only as good as the people who are using it. So we need to make sure that it's a diverse group of humans putting a diverse amount of information and opinions and thoughts into AI so that it's not perpetuating the stereotypes and mirroring. I probably can't help but mirror our society, but we can do our best to make sure that what it's mirroring is the best of us. It should be part of the conversation. And it also, like another bias, is this idea of ableist and privileged standard. So if we only have people who are middle class putting, you know, using AI as part of the digital divide, that's a very privileged kind of viewpoint. And so AI will reflect that in its outputs. So again, we need to make sure that we're including people with disabilities, we're including gender, race, all types of diversity. And hopefully the best of us will come through.
So Brandy, when you say AI tools should be, or it says tools should be tested and reviewed, who are the AI testers or the AI gatekeepers?
That is such a great question. That is what I think is going to be decided maybe at the state level, but even better if it was happening at the local levels, right? It should be educators should be part of that process. Maybe even some students could be part of that process. It should absolutely not be a room full of IT guys or girls who have never used AI to teach, right? It needs to be educators and students who are part of that testing and feedback loop and evaluating. And you guys are the best ones to do it. And so a committee, right? A union-led committee, and it could have all kinds of implications, right? To bargaining and all of those great things that we do as a union. So yeah, that's a great question. Who should be at the table? Who should be making the policies? Who should be reviewing these tools? Who does it now? In most districts, it's the IT people who do it, and maybe the superintendent and school board.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes. As far as and Miss Karen might know, as far as our state in Georgia, have we had any talks with State Superintendent Woods, and are we at the table with that? And like, you know, is GAE at the table with them on AI or what?
And I'm deferring to President Morgan.
Daryl, we are always having conversations with Superintendent Woods, but so much of this is brand new. And again, so much of it is it's going to be at the local level that the advocacy has to happen, particularly in Georgia, where we have charter systems and waiver school systems. Even if we take the very best and get the very best legal requirements for AI in public education, as long as those 132 systems can, no, it's 130 now, say we're waiving this, and they can, then it comes right back to the local level and being sure that our locals are involved. And
Yeah.
I think first questioning. I think the thing that I am hearing is somebody's going to come in and try to tell everyone all these things are good and wonderful. And those of us that have been around a while, we've heard that about all the different textbooks and everything. And to be willing to ask those questions and to be willing to be that teacher that stands up and says, wait a minute, you say research, who did the research? You know, when I look up the research on this, is it only being done by the people who are making money from this particular product?
Right. Yeah. In times past, you know, we've relied on like the Georgia Tech think tank, and
Right.
the Mr. Reese's used to do a whole lot of training, but I don't know what the funding has been on that, because it seems like they've taken a step back.
And part of that's because of the new professional development program. All professional development is now embedded in with the evaluation system, and that will continue with the new system.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think like education everywhere in this country has been, we're kind of used to it as educators. We work so hard giving most of what we have to our students that a lot of things get done to us. And I think we need to really be careful and make sure that that doesn't continue to happen. The stakes are getting much higher. It's not a textbook. It's a transformative change in how we do things. All right, principle 3 is about, right, the ethical development and use of AI technology and strong data protection practices. This is where your IT people are going to be your frenemies, right? Because it's their job to keep everybody safe and protect the data, but they also sometimes clash with the need for us to have flexibility and, right, and opportunities to use some of these things. So making friends with IT and working with IT on these things, I think, is another place that classroom teachers and paraeducators, really all the ESP categories should be at the table when IT decisions are being made, because we need to understand why they're concerned, and they need to understand why we don't think it's a good idea, right? And so I think that's another important point of collaboration. We know that AI is, rift with biases, but we also have these facial recognition tools that are coming out, and they don't recognize Black and brown faces as well as they do white faces. So there's some racial profiling going on. I mean, it is something that the union needs to really keep out of our schools, is that facial recognition and surveillance. Oversight should be done by human beings, not computers, right? And then we also have to make sure that it's adaptable across cultures. We need to make sure that educators who are in the classroom and, school boards and superintendents, all levels, understand like how FERPA needs to be changed to deal with these things, how COPA, it's still about student privacy. And anything you put into AI right now, unless it's like a system you bought specifically for your school district, anything you put into ChatGPT or any of the other stuff that's out there is helping to train the model. And you're giving away data, and it's illegal to do that with our student data. So, we have to understand how careful we need to be about protecting sensitive information, keeping names out of that system, that should just not be done. And we have to find a middle ground between just locking everybody out of everything and making sure we're doing safely and ethically. There's also, the developers who are building this stuff don't have a lot of guardrails right now. And so when we're thinking about, policies at the national level, we want to make sure that there are some guardrails on some of these tech developers who are putting things in front of our children. It might be deferred down to the states now. So it's really important that we have kind of a national strategy, and we can help each other to make some accountability for the developers who are using game theory to get everybody addicted to technology. And then there's also environmental and energy concerns. AI takes up huge amounts of energy, like its carbon footprint is big, as is Bitcoin, right? We don't understand, like, we think it's in the ether web and it's free, but it's not. There's these server farms all over the place that are, lots of energy. And so, where are they going to put, as this grows and the need increases, where are they going to put all these servers, right? Everybody's like, not in my backyard. So then whose backyard does it get put in, right? And so we need to be aware of that as well. Any questions about like the ethical? I feel like these should have been two separate ones, like the ethical and the data protections, but it's all one. Are there any questions about that?
So there's a comment in the chat. Someone has said, it appears that one use of AI as a teacher is to detect the use of AI like ChatGPT by our students. But this would also seem to put the students' work into the realm, which means it can likely be used by the bot to feed the future ChatGPT searches. So I think,
yes.
Yeah.
So those plagiarism detectors are so unreliable, and there's a lot of bias in those. I would not use those until they get better. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I personally, I tested like 10 of them on one piece of writing and got different answers for all of them. There's research that's being done now that's showing the same thing. They don't work. So I think you know your students, right? You know them, you're with them every day. You know how they write. And if they're second language learner, is it okay for them to use ChatGPT to help them with their verbs? You know, that's all decisions that need to be made about teaching and using AI with students. What's okay? What's ethical? Why do we use AI? And why shouldn't we use AI? And those are great conversations to have with your students if you're teaching, you know, at high school, middle school, upper elementary school. The little ones, I don't know how much they're actually going to be using AI, except for maybe for some of those tutoring programs, but we need to have the conversations early, you know? This is why we use it, and this is why we don't use it, just like everything else. The calculators, remember that?
Mhm.
Yeah, the plagiarism flags people all the time. So I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about using AI in the classroom. I don't think that it's like, okay, so I would say surveillance cameras, don't use those. Like that's one that's easy for me to say. Those aren't good for anybody. But the like tools like ChatGPT, Magic School Bus, like they're all okay to use in some ways. And they all have, you know, hazards to use them in other ways. So it's the humans that need to hash this out. This is where the nitty gritty, what are our policies and why, have to happen. You can put student work into the AI, just don't put their name attached to it, right? But if you put a fifth grade, if you put 10 fifth grade essays into ChatGPT and ask for some big picture analysis, you have to know that that is using it to train ChatGPT what fifth grade writing looks like. And so if we're only putting like low or high, you know, writers into it to analyze, it's going to get a very skewed perception. So, you know, we just have to think things through and use our human skills to make decisions about what's okay and what's not okay. And, you know, I think that you know in your heart what's right and wrong. We just have to learn how to put a voice to it and who to share it with. And that's what your friendly union is there to help you do. Okay, so I'm going to move through equitable access, and it's basically, you know, just making sure that we're not making the gaps wider. We're using it as a leveling playing field instead of, you know, this school in this, you know, I'm from California originally. And so we had like the Orange County schools. They had a lot of money and they had all the fancy stuff and they were all mostly white. And then we had the San Bernardino County where I lived that was poor, the buildings were falling apart, right? And we had one computer for 100 students. So, you know, like it's not equitable. So when we're thinking about how we spend money and where we put the tools, we need to make sure that we're not leaving out groups and we're actually giving them to the groups that need them the most. And that's just an education funding issue that we're always talking about. But I think that the digital divide, especially the access issues, like working with Google and working with other companies who have programs to get that internet into those rural communities can help level this playing field and bring more access to families. All right, and then principle 5 is the learning with and about AI. And this one is really at the heart, I think, of what you do. And so if I was going to think about a curriculum or a, you know, professional development plan, these are the things I would think about. So thinking about learning with AI, both educators and students can use AI to help them learn. We use Google, we watch YouTube, we're already using technology tools to learn. And this is just another form of that. We can't block it. I don't know about Georgia because I'm not there, but I know like they used to block YouTube and then their filters got so ridiculous, like they just gave up on it, right? So it's similar, right? This is out there, it's in the world. The world does not have filters. Our students have to go out and interact into the world. So our schools have the opportunity to use AI in ethical, responsible ways that enhance learning and not, learning how to use it in really bad ways, like creating deep fakes. So I would think about using AI and a human as a partner. We're a partner in learning, right? I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to give me some answers. I'm going to ask you some more questions, and we're going to drill down into what it is I need. So learning how to ask questions, great skill, critical thinking, we all need it. Using it for yourself as a professional growth tool. Again, you can ask it for lots of different things, and there are AI tools out there that are catering to educators. ISTE is developing one called Stretch AI, and they're testing it right now. I have a feeling that's going to be a fantastic tool for teachers to use for professional learning. And then using it, of course, as an administrative assistant, writing emails, looking at big data trends without any personal information. There's, calendar, there's all kinds of AI tools out there for that type of thing. And then also both students and teachers need to know how AI is trained and developed. And so educators need to learn about this first, right? I didn't know what a large language model was a year ago. I had no idea. Now I kind of know. It's ChatGPT, right? It's how they learn. They're learning language by input. We need to learn about the ethical use, and that's, data security and bias, really. And of course, the privacy and security. So we have to learn how it actually works and how it's utilized so that we can make really good human decisions. We also have to make sure that we advocate for professional development for all stakeholders, teachers, paras, ESPs, board members, superintendent, parents, grandparents, families, students, right? Everybody needs to start learning about this. And so any programs that you have working with community or outreach should include some sort of AI awareness, maybe just, hey, did you know this is, because a lot of people are really afraid of it. And when people are really afraid of something, they block it, and blocking it doesn't help anybody. So advocating for that, advocating for professional development. Your union is already leading the charge on this. Yay. So yeah, keep it up. As you start to use AI in your classrooms, get together, form a community, talk about it, and keep it going, because from past experiences, probably your school district is not going to develop an awesome professional development training on AI program for you. You might be in an exceptional district. So thinking about this, there's a lot of advocacy work that needs to be done right now. There's a lot of learning. So, erasing the digital divide, protecting our workforce, making sure that our paras are being replaced by tutoring robots, make sure our districts aren't making decisions about individual students based on just data inputted without a human eye or a relationship to base that on. And also, like, if climate's your thing, mitigate some of the impacts of climate change, so that, and think about our usage. And to me, that right now there's I don't know what we could do about it, but it is an awareness thing, you know, to think about. And so that's kind of the 5 principles in a nutshell. And if in the future you want one that's more professional development, that's more focused on like tools and stuff, just let me know and I can come back and do that. And I can also answer any questions you have right now about a lot of things, not everything.
Well, Brandy, I thank you for presenting. I guess one of my questions to participants, and if you can just put it in the chat, do any of your districts have an AI policy at this point in time? That's one question. And okay, so I got one no. Does anybody have a district that has an AI policy? Approved AI and okay. Okay, no policy. So without a policy, and that's kind of what I'm getting in the chat, are you using AI in your educational setting with students? Is anybody using it?
Karen, I would point out that almost all of our systems are using it when they are using the testing systems, such as it just went out of my brain, but the testing that the students are doing on the computer, and it changes and adapts the test that the students are being given based on their answers. And we've had this for several years. Somebody indicate MAPS.
Maps. Yes.
Yes.
we have-
Oh, the MAPS testing. Gotcha.
Yes.
So
That's adaptive testing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's AI. I mean, it's adapting to the student as they take the test.
wow. I'm a retired member and have been retired for 12 years. So I just hear about these things, and but it seems like one of the directions we want to go is to not be isolated within the state and to have a seat at the table in developing policy, and then to make sure that the policy usage is not waived in all of this. So that we really are using AI for the good. Is that a good summary, Lisa Morgan, President GAE?
Yes, I definitely. Yes.
Great. And I think we have time for maybe one question. Is there a question that you just can't hold it back? And thanks for everybody who shared in the chat. Someone said, can you email the PowerPoint? So, Brandy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's actually a Google Doc. Do you use Google Docs? I can just put the link in right now.
That's fine. And then I can email it to the participants if that's helpful for everybody. So the answer is yes. Thank you so much, Brandy. And if you want to interact with Brandy again, we are going to do each PD in your PJ's topic twice. And so I'm putting it in the chat too, that on Saturday, December 14th, from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. You can join us again, but it's just kind of like a reading model. It's not going to be exactly the same text because it'll be different people joining with different questions and different interests. So please share the fact that we are having PD in your PJs with other GAE members and friends, because I think being versed in this topic is going to be extremely important in the next span of time within professional careers. And it's very helpful to be able to share across the state and say, oh, Tiffany in Northwest Georgia is doing this, and Tony in Covington is doing this. And so that we just network with one another and we don't isolate in a silo about this. And somebody said, how do we advocate for teachers being included in AI decisions at the state level? And I think you just did by asking that question. So I am going to observe our time frame of going through and stopping at 7 tonight. Thank you so much. Again, I can send the recording, I can send the PowerPoint, and thank you so much for everything you do for public education. Thank you for being a GAE member, and thank you for being here this evening. Have a great evening. Thank you so much.